Salutations, respected viewers. This is George Callahan. I'm continuing my series about international relations between the wars. This is for History GCSE. So it's looking at the Big Four at the Paris peace conferences, particularly Versailles. I already mentioned Clemenceau. Now on to David Lloyd George, who's Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Well, Lloyd George, the Welsh wizard as he was known. Bear in mind his surname is Lloyd George. It's a double-barrel surname, even though it's not hyphenated. He did not want to be too hard on Germany. He believed that if the Germans felt that they were treated unfairly, they would come back against the Allies later, seeking vengeance. So he thought better not to be too severe. Moreover, he realized that Germany was a vital trading partner of the British, and that by damaging the German economy, the United Kingdom would damage its own economy. Moreover, he thought there was a new, greater threat in the East. The Bolshevik Revolution had taken place in Russia, October 1917, and the Bolsheviks started to call themselves communists, and the communists wanted to impose their ideology on all the other countries. So Lloyd George thought that Western Europe needed a reasonably strong Germany to act as a bulwark against the new communist state in Russia. Despite all this, Lloyd George was a politician with elections to win. Amongst the British public, Germany's name was mud. There were popular slogans around at the time, such as "Make Germany Pay," or "Squeeze Germany until the pips squeak," as though Germany was a fruit. You can imagine how much you'd be squeezing it until the seeds were making a squeaking noise. They really wanted to exact the most horrific suffering on the Germans. There was blood-curdling hatred towards German people amongst many people in the UK that didn't pass away for decades. People said, "Hang the Kaiser," the Kaiser being the German emperor. So anyway, Lloyd George went on the stump, electioneering, and he promised that the Germans would be made to pay right down to the last brass farthing. Farthing was the lowest denomination coin. 750,000 British men have been killed in the war, several thousand civilians too. The number of dead Britons was about half the number of dead Frenchmen. The British population at the time was about 42 million. The British public was certainly angry towards Germany, but not as many people were as furious as most of the French were. The United Kingdom owed $1 billion to the United States. Now, that's peanuts in governmental terms now, but back in 1919, $1 billion was a mind-blowing sum of money. The U-boat campaign, that's German submarines, had tried to starve the United Kingdom into submission, sinking shiploads of food. They had not succeeded, but they had wrought great hardship on the British people, who were living on rations, even for a bit after the war, having to pay for food, but also provide little cardboard coupons, rations, to get their food. So it caused real hardship, and not just for the poor, even the wealthy had not been living in such luxury during the war. Anyway, so against Lloyd George's better judgment, he decided to be tough on Germany. He did temper the extraordinarily vengeful attitude of people like Clemenceau. Coming on to Orlando. So Italy, that was the weakest of the Big Four. Vittorio Orlando was their prime minister. Italy had not performed well in the Great War. She'd been mainly fighting her own territory, had been backed up by French and British troops. The Italians were unable to contribute to military operations outside their own land. They were being promised a huge amount of territory by the French and British, because Italy had been neutral in the first year of the war. And there had been a bidding war between the Central Powers and the Allies to get Italy on their side. They both desperately wanted Italian help. As I pointed out, Italy wasn't that militarily powerful, but she'd be problematic as an enemy. She would have opened a new front against France. The Italian navy was formidable, even though the Italian army was not strong. So the British were very keen that Italy, if not be neutral, join their side. So there had been the secret Treaty of London in 1915. The Italians had asked for all sorts of things, presented a wish list. The French and British diplomats had just said yes, yes, yes to everything, because they're very eager to secure Italian support. The Italians had been guaranteed ample rewards for their pains, but Italy had little interest beyond gaining more land. However, Italy had been militarily ineffective and to a large degree depended on the other Allied countries. Therefore, Italy was not very influential in the Paris Peace Treaties, and Italy was racked by internal strife at the time, mass unemployment. Communist Nostra became popular in Italy, in its northern industrial cities, people hoisting the red flag of communism, trying to copy the communist revolution which had taken place in Russia a couple of years earlier. Now, a communist revolution did not take place in Italy, but it seemed fairly likely that it would. So Italy was distracted by her own internal travails, her economy was in tatters, and as I say, the country was riven by political violence. So the Prime Minister Orlando achieved little for Italy during the negotiations, and indeed he was forced to resign right before the treaty was signed. So the treaties gave Italy minimal land, and most of this land was supposed to be taken from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And right before the armistice, Austria-Hungary had split up. Austria went one way, Hungary became a separate country. A new country called Czechoslovakia was created, doesn't exist anymore. It's what's now the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Nowadays it's two separate countries. Some of Austria-Hungary's territory gone to Poland, some of it gone to Romania, some of it gone to a country called Yugoslavia, which again doesn't exist anymore. So in order to give Italy all she wanted, that would have meant taking more land from Austria-Hungary, but actually more from its successor states, such as Yugoslavia. As that would require the Allies to be even harder on the Central Powers, and then one of the major criticisms of the Allies is that they were mean to the Central Powers by punishing them too severely. So the Allies envisaged taking land away from the Ottoman Empire, basically Turkey, so that would compensate the Italians. As we'll see later, the Italians were unable to make good on their claim, just didn't have the military force to do so. It would not have taken much for the French and British to have taken away one of Germany's colonies in Africa or Asia and allotted it to Italy. Anyway, perhaps foolishly they chose not to do so. The Second World War might have panned out a bit different if they had. Anyway, it's notable the way Clemenceau and Lloyd George felt they had the right to allot land in other continents to each other or to third parties. They didn't believe they needed to consult the inhabitants of these various territories. Countries could be passed back and forth between the great powers without asking the opinion of the people in the country concerned. All right, that's enough for the moment.